Never forget that day. I mean, the FBI, DEA came in with their rifles, raided my mom's house. Put everyone on the ground, everyone screaming, yelling. I ended up getting a big time Mexican mafia, Aryan brother attorney. And she goes, no, we're not taking this to trial. You're taking your 10 years. You're on wiretap. They have you on wiretap.
Oh, wow.
For 2 years.
Wow.
It was a nightmare in there, man. Like, I mean, you're seeing people die. You're hearing people scream. It's a whole other world in there. And I was 18 at the time, scared as shit. And that was when I decided that I wanted to come out better than how I came in.
I love that.
I made a lot of clients millions of dollars. Millions. Multi-millions. I was helping these people become successful. I'm like, all right, well, I think I can do this. You know, we went from 1 or 2 projects. Now I have 15 ground up projects.
Danny Navarro.
Danny Navarro.
Danny Navarro.
Danny Navarro.
Danny Navarro, from ex-convict to a successful realtor, developer, and investor.
So, Danny, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
Yes, pleasure.
Let us start from the very beginning. Tell me about your teenage years.
Where to begin? Let's see. Let's start. So I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised in Los Angeles. At probably like, I want to say 5th grade is when my parents got divorced. My actually not divorced, but my mother left my father. My father was you know, at the time on addicted to crack cocaine and alcohol. So you know, she got tired of it, couldn't put up with it, and we moved. We left. She left my father, and I moved to another part of town, and from there, I would say that's where a lot of the stuff started, you know, my life started drastically changing because I started rebelling. I wanted my parents to be together. I didn't understand at the time what was going on. I was in 5th grade, right? You don't know much. You just see your mom crying, dad not there, and you know. So, and then from there, I started meeting other individual friends. Well, they were friends, right, at the time, and we were just, you know, a bunch of kids that were playing sports, from hanging out after school to getting involved in drugs at gangs at like 5th, 6th grade.
And then 5th, 6th grade for me, who's from the UK, what age is that?
Oh, what age would that be? That's a good question. Probably 10, 11, 12, like 12 maybe. 10, 11, I would say 12.
Okay. All right. So you'd say your trouble started when there was problems at home.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And then you started rebelling.
Yeah.
Started hanging around with kids. And school, how did that affect your school?
Well, no. So basically, my parents, you know, my mother left my father. So when we moved, you know, I started, you know, I wanted my parents to be together. So then I didn't have a father figure at home.
Right.
So automatically, I mean, you're gonna do what you want, you know, and then from there, started hanging out with a group of friends. But at that time, when we were in 5th grade, 6th grade, we were just young kids that would go to school, hang out after school, go eat. And then we started, you know, we played sports, and then from there we had so much time on our hand that we started hanging out with people that were doing, you know, that were involved with gangs and drugs, and then that led to that life.
Right. And then you were never interested in school?
Not really.
No,
not really. Okay. Yeah.
And then when did the trouble start? What was your first gang affiliation? Drugs? I believe you said that you started selling drugs, right? And
yeah.
That's where you got into problems with the law.
I think earlier on it was small, like robberies, I would say. You know, it was small little robberies, like to buy drugs, you know, at the time. And that was like 5th, 6th grade, like definitely like
you were using?
Smoking weed, yeah.
Oh, weed.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, smoking weed. So then, like, I would say 6th, 7th grade is where we started getting involved with like little stuff, little robberies here, maybe into a car, you know, maybe some, you know, like kids or something like that, stuff like that. You know, kids at that our age at the time, right? Maybe stealing a cell phone, pager kind of stuff.
Okay, all right. And at that age, what would you say could have changed your route and the direction you were going in? Was it that father figure you needed? Was it the school system let you down? What were you looking for?
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't regret anything. I'm glad, you know, I'm really happy and blessed the way my life ended up. You know, so for me, like, I don't know, I feel like I had to go through all that shit.
Right.
Because if I would have had a different location growing up, or maybe my father around, I don't know what I would be doing, who I am today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's really hard to tell you. But I mean, definitely now what I know now today, if I had the right positive mentors and role models, then that's going to change my life regardless, no matter what, because it's contagious.
Right, that's an interesting perspective, because a lot of people that you speak to say if they had to go back, they wouldn't change anything because it's led them to the person they are, which I agree with. I mean, if I had to go back and I look at my life, I ended up where I am now because of all the positive and negative mistakes that I made along the way. But if you do go back with the hindsight that you have now and the knowledge, a lot of things would change. I know for me, definitely a lot of things would change. I wouldn't make a lot of the decisions that I did. You know, I guess that's the question of taking the negativity and using it to a positive purpose in your life, right?
Correct.
Okay. In terms of,
honestly, I'm happy the way shit, you know, happy that I went to jail, happy that I had to struggle and go through everything, because it's made me who I am, man.
Right. They say that tough times make strong people.
Yes.
So it's definitely part of the journey, whether the toughness comes from the situation you went through, or whether it comes through bankruptcy or whatever it is. That's why when you meet people that have character, and I don't want to generalize, but people that have character seem to have gone through some kind of hardship in life.
Correct.
Because it builds a certain personality in you, resilience in you.
Correct.
First time you got in trouble with the police.
First time I got
Take me to that. What happened?
I think the first time I got in trouble with the police, a great question. I think I got caught for writing on the walls.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
All right. And how old were you?
Oh, yeah, I was under 18.
Under 18.
Yeah,
okay.
like 16, yeah.
Okay. And the trouble that led you to your arrest and prison.
So no, I think I got out like the next day or something like that.
Right.
Or like
no, but
I think I didn't even go to jail.
Right, but the sequence of events that led you to that, you being arrested, and run me through that process. What happened? How did you end up there? And then, you know, what were you thinking while you were waiting to be sentenced?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got away with a lot of crime, you know, prior to turning 18, and then, but the minute I turned 18 is when my life kind of like everything changed.
Right.
Like 16 days after my 18th birthday, I got arrested for like GTA, some stuff with cars, and then I had some meth on me at the time. And then from there, I did like a day in jail, got out, got on probation, and then I got arrested right after that for some other car stuff as well, and then I did like 28 days in LA County Jail, and that was like the nightmare.
Okay.
It was a nightmare in there, man. Like, I mean, you're seeing people die. You know, you're hearing people scream. You know, in the cells. You know, it's a whole other world in there. And I was 18 at the time, scared as shit.
Right.
You know, didn't know what prison was or jail was. I was around a lot of gang members from everything. You know, Mexicans, whites, blacks, everything. Murderers, killers, drugger. You know, robbery, everything. And so 28 days was like the hardest.
And then you came out.
Then I came out.
Okay, so
yeah.
here's my question. Why does that 28 days where you say you saw what you saw not deter you from going back to the life you were living and not want to end up there for as long as you did?
Yeah, because I thought I knew it all.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm like, well, you know, I already kind of experienced it. And then I'm like, well, it wasn't, you know, that bad.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't like as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then, but honestly, the federal government was already watching me prior to that. So like the investigation was already 12 months already going on. So like basically like I was in jail while the investigation was already like going through already.
Right.
Yeah, so it didn't really matter. Like I could have changed my life and said I'm doing good because they're already charging me for stuff I did prior to going to jail.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and they waited till I turned 18. But honestly, like, you know, you don't know what you know. You're 18, you don't think any better. You're like, and then I didn't know how serious the federal government was. And then I'm like, well, worst case, you know, I do what I do again, or maybe I do a year or two, but I can make a lot of money, money in the next year or two, and then, worst case, I do 18 months, and then I still have some, it ain't gonna be that bad.
When you say make money, that was selling drugs, right?
Selling drugs, correct.
And then
yeah.
that's what you ultimately got arrested for?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, do you
correct.
remember where you were when you got arrested?
Yeah, so I was at my mom's house.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically,
Was it morning, night, evening?
it was early morning. I'm always up super early, exercising. At the time I was training. I was training with my grandfather, boxing. So I was training for like 3 years, and I used to get up every day and run, and then, then go to deal with my day, and then at like 3 o'clock, I'll go to the gym. But I was at my mom's house, and never forget that day. I mean, the DEA came in, FBI, DEA, local law enforcement came in and with their rifles.
Wow.
And raided my house, raided my mom's house, and put everyone on the ground, everyone screaming, yelling. I was asleep in my room, and they dragged me out, and never forget, they're like, we got him, we got him, we got him. And my mom's like, you don't got him, you're looking for his father. And they're like, no, we got Junior.
Oh, wow.
And then, my mom's screaming, niece is screaming in there, and they took me outside of the front house, and never forget this day. They were like, oh man, you're gonna do some time, right? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, no, I'm like, whatever. I'm like, whatever. And they're like, you're gonna do some time. You got caught with the feds. This ain't state, and you're gonna do 10 years. And I'm like, whatever. Like, what? And then that was it.
Did you believe them, or you thought
I didn't believe them.
Okay.
I'm like, man, I didn't do 10 years, like that much stuff to get caught for 10 years.
Wow. Okay, so then they take you in, you get questioned, and then would you get put in a
So
cell?
so I thought I was going to go to LA County, back to LA County Jail. Well, first I thought I was going to go to the station to LA County Jail, and then then you go to medium, then you go to Wayside or wherever you need to go, waiting to go to court. So they took me to downtown LA to the federal building. I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this place? I'm like, I don't know what this is. Then I'm dealing with marshals.
Okay.
Not police officers, marshals. They take me in, and this shit's like the shit that you see on movies. Like, the federal, system's way different, and marshals take you in, they book you, and you just go through a whole process. And then, they take you in, you go to, you sit in the tank, you change, whatever you do, get you naked, put you in a jumpsuit, throw you in a tank, and they just walk you through this whole little room area, and they process you in, take your photos, and then you see a federal judge for like maybe 2 minutes, and then that's it. Then they take you back to they take you to housing, and then from there, dude, you don't go to court for another 3 or 4 months.
Oh, wow.
So
And the entire time you're held?
Yeah.
Inside,
And you're
okay.
waiting. You're like, what the fuck?
Right.
And they charge you. They charge me for conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine.
Okay. Was that a plea deal? Did you plead guilty, or?
Well, no. So basically, so that whole process from getting arrested to getting sentenced was about maybe 16 months.
Wow. Okay.
And in those 16 months, you only see a judge maybe 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So like you go in and they're like, come back in 3 or 4 months. You're like, dude, I'm trying to get out on bail.
Right.
Couldn't get out on bail. No one wanted to put their house up for me. My mom didn't own a house at the time.
Wow.
And they're like, you have to come back in like 3 months.
How much was bail?
It was like, at the time, I think like a house. I don't know the dollar amount,
Right.
but I needed a house.
Okay.
And obviously with equity, right? Like
Right.
probably now knowing what that is, right?
Right.
But so they're like, dude, they give you the court date, come back in a couple months, and you're like, wait, what do you mean a couple months? Like, this is like, did you see a judge at 3 months? Like, that's a long time.
Right. And then you didn't have any legal representation?
Well, I had a public defender, yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I went through that, and like, but there's always blessings, because if I would have got bail, I wouldn't have learned how to do prison time.
Right.
Because that 12, 18 months, 16 months that I was there on holding to get sentenced, it taught me how to do prison time.
So you go back in front of the judge and you get sentenced. How long for?
I got sentenced to 120 months for conspiracy to distribute
120
methamphetamine.
months,
Yeah,
okay.
at 18.
At 18, okay. So then you get sentenced, you go back to prison where you'd been held anyway, right?
Yeah, so you go back to the holding place,
Right.
and then basically, you're happy though. Like honestly, after 16 months, you want to start your journey.
Okay.
You know, you're like, everybody's ready to get sentenced. I'm like, great, man, I want to start my time. I want to do my time. You know, even though that's time served, you know, it's going to go off your sentence, but
Right.
you want to start at whatever that is.
Did
know?
you think you'd get the length of time that you got or not?
Well, they were actually they were trying to get me they were trying to sentence me to 14 years.
Wow.
So 10 years was a deal.
Okay.
But there was no way to break that mandatory minimum. I had a mandatory minimum, so there's only two ways to break it. Either you snitch or you have a clean record and you can get a reduced sentence. But I didn't have a clean record. Remember, I just got arrested.
Right.
So that little mistake, that little arrest costed me probably 5 years.
And then the arrest, was it just yourself or was it a part of a group that got arrested?
Oh, there was probably over maybe 50 to 60 people in the indictment, yeah. And these are people I never even met. I only knew 3 people in the indictment.
That's insane. Okay, so then you go back to prison to serve the rest of your time. Is it the same place you've been staying in?
I get sentenced. I have my family there. I have my attorney. And I was going to take my trial to the box, which meaning I was going to go to trial and fight my trial because I thought I was still innocent. Because remember, conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, I had no drugs on me.
Okay.
No drugs. Not one lick of drugs. They had me on wiretap, and that's all they had. And that's all they needed.
So what they refer to as circumstantial, right?
Yeah. So I'm I don't got anything. I'm going to beat this shit.
Okay.
And the judge, my attorney at that time was like, no, you're not. He's like, no. He said, no, we're going to take it to trial. We're going to put your mom on the stand. We're going to get her going. You're going to beat this shit. And I'm like, let's do it. So I was in.
Okay.
And the federal government has a 90% plus conviction rate.
Yeah.
So I could have got 20 years. So for a reason, blessing from God, they changed my attorney conflict of interest. I ended up getting a pro bono attorney that was a big time Mexican mafia, Aryan brother attorney.
Okay.
So I get this big time lady, and she comes and we meet her, and she knows her shit, and she goes, no, we're not taking this to trial. You're taking your 10 years. She's like, there's no way, you're gonna lose. And she goes, as a mom, I would tell you to snitch because I'm going to these high facility prison places and working with high profile people. And she goes, I would tell you to snitch, but as your attorney and knowing what I do, take your 10 years. She's like, you can't beat it. You're on wiretap. They have you on wiretap. You're not. You're talking about deals.
Right.
You're not doing it. So, and she goes, I'm going to try to get you the 120 months because they wanted to give me the 14 years. So
120 months would be how many years?
10 years.
10
so they
years.
wanted to give me 10. They wanted to give me 14. And she's like, we're going to try to get to 10. Look, there's really no way to break it. So we're at court, and all my family's there. Never forget that day, right? It's just that. And at that point, man, I just already in my head, I already conditioned myself for 10 years. So I'm like, I'm 18. I'll get out at 28. I had a cellie at the time, which was a roommate that I was in a cell with. And he did juvenile life.
Okay.
And
Which means what?
so he was arrested from 16 to 25. So he did 9 years or something like that. And he was my bunkie at the time.
Right.
And people come in your life for a reason. And that's what I'm saying. I was blessed because he taught me how to do time, and he coached me. And he's like, you're gonna be young, you're gonna educate yourself, you're gonna be 25, 26, you have the whole world ahead of you. So he already conditioned me how to do these 10 years, not even knowing, stepping out now, I didn't realize what he was doing.
Right.
And so, I finally was up, I got sentenced, I got sentenced, they offered me the time, my family starts crying, my mom's crying, everyone's crying in the audience, and then the judge just pretty much told me, you have anything last day to say? And he gave me this hour speech of how I was gonna grow up in prison, and that was it. I had to take responsibility for the crime, and he sentenced me, and that was it. And then you go back to the dorm. Well, it's they're cells, but it's you go back into the unit, and there's probably maybe 40 cells, and there's maybe 80 people in there, 2 people per cell, and they have they go in there, all your friends in there, the guys that you're doing time with have been there. You go in there, and everyone's waiting, hey, how did it go, man? Well, I took the 10, and you're just like happy. You're like, man, well, it's cool. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start my journey. And then from there, you wait a couple months till they ship you off to a prison.
Were you remorseful? Were you regretting what you'd done, or were you just in that, I accept what's happened and just gonna do my time?
It was hard for me. It was really hard for me because I was 18. You know, I thought at the time, like, I was going to be away from friends and all that stuff. So that was hard. Like, I didn't graduate high school. So I was going through my second year of high school because I was going to graduate I didn't graduate. So they make you go back again to finish your credits.
Right.
So I was still in high school at the time.
Wow.
So I'm a kid. And, I'm like, so.
I guess, is there a moment of disbelief that your life has ended up where it has, or is it just when you start this journey, is it the inevitable result of going down the path you decided to go down with drugs and gangs and so on? Is it something that's just accepted?
I would say I was depressed.
Okay.
Like, I maybe didn't show it, but I was depressed.
Okay.
I was depressed, mad, angry, at like life. I would say, and then at the same time, I was ready to just do my time and understood that I was even though I got sentenced to 10 years, there was that good time I got, but I was already mentally ready to do 10 years.
So how do you get yourself mentally ready? That's one thing that you hear over and over again. And I've spoken to people that have done time before. They say the first day you can't even believe it's happening, and then after a few weeks it gets easier, and then somehow it's almost, I don't want to relate it to or compare it to meditation, but it's almost that, from what I understood, that you mentally accept the reality of where you are now. It's when you start meditating, the noise at first becomes so much, and then eventually just completely calms down.
Correct.
Is it the same acceptance?
Well, yes and no. But so those first 2 weeks, in like the first month, is where I was like depressed. Like, so I couldn't believe it. I would wake up at night or in the morning, and I had a dream that I was in the street, and I would wake up and I'm like, fuck, I'm fucking still here. Like, what the fuck, I'm still here. And then, so that happened the first few months, but I'm saying that whole trial time, it made me learn how to do time. But that's how it was the first few weeks.
So when you say you learned how to do time, what does that mean? Can you elaborate on
Well,
it? Is it just
it's all
acceptance of
programmed.
it?
It's like a calendar, right? Like, you send me a calendar link to be here at a certain time, and I'm an hour late, and I apologize, but right? But you send me, you live your life, we live our life off of a calendar. Same shit. We get up in the morning, we either have our breakfast, or we take our breakfast back to the cell, and we do a workout. We do our burpees, pull-ups, and then we have our breakfast, right? And then like in me, like I ran with the Southsiders in there, so which is like the Mexican gangs. We have to be up at a certain time. We gotta be up when they crack the doors. We have to have our shoes on all the time. When we walk to the shower, we have to walk with our boots, and then take our boots off, and then get in the shower with our showers. So there's a lot of rules in there, and then we would work out in the morning, have our breakfast, and then after that, it's like you just follow this routine. Either reading, playing cards, dominoes, some TV, but like there's a program. Then there's lunch. Then from lunch, you maybe do another workout, and then you have dinner, and then you're out in the open common area for another hour or two, and then you hit the cell, and then you're reading.
Is it true that when you get into the prison system, you have to be associated with a gang or a group in order to be able to survive?
90% do, yeah.
90%, okay.
Yeah.
And you said you ended up in a group as well.
Yeah.
Do you have to do something to get into that group, or were you a young kid and they took you
No,
under
I
their
was
wing?
involved with gangs already in the street. So with people that I either knew or friends of friends.
Right.
So
you have a welcome party?
not a walking party, but it's like, you're like, hey, this person, that person, and then it's
Right.
like, oh, him, all right, cool, and then you become their friends, right?
Okay.
So
Okay, that's interesting. During your time in prison, did you get into any trouble, fights, any other things that you shouldn't have been involved in?
So mostly, what would happen is that they would sometimes take a group of people, if you're associated with a group of people, and they would take you to you know, to get locked down, whatever it is like that. Like basically, like maybe somebody's selling drugs, so they pull everybody, you know, whatever it is, right? And then they do their investigation, they find out. Thankfully, I missed a lot of riots that happened. But like I got caught with like little small contraband, like nothing like serious like that. But like, you know, you can't have certain stuff in there. I got caught with, and then like I had to do like 8 months in the hole at one time, and that was with just because I was involved with a group of people, and then so they just take everybody, and then they hope somebody then like snitch is what they're gonna do.
When you say the whole, what does that mean for
Solitary
people that don't?
confinement,
Okay.
probably 23 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
For how long?
For about 8 months. It was a really long time, like 6 to 8 months. I don't remember the time, but it was like the second year in.
That's insane. So
Yeah.
again, I've spoken to a couple of guys that have done the same thing, and they say it's almost eventually it becomes like an out of body experience because you're so isolated and alone. Is that what you went through? Anything similar to that?
It's pretty much, man. Pretty much. You know, in there, it's like, it's the same thing. It's programming. Like we used to have to get up at like 4 in the morning to like, they would come and say, hey, you want to come out? They would knock on your door and say like, do you want to come out? Or no, they would walk down the hallway actually, where they would walk down the hallway, and then you'd have to be standing at this little window and either say 1 or 2. So meaning one person's coming out or 2 people coming out. So I remember like being scared because we had to come out. If you didn't come out of that cell for that hour to work out with the guys, you know, you were gonna get in trouble. You know, either maybe a little slight warning, or the second one, you know, they give you 13 seconds, you know, to make sure. So I would have to like be stressed out, like, and you don't have no clock. You're like, fuck, man, is it time to get up so we can tell them to go out? And then, you know, from there you go out, you work out, come back, breakfast, and then, you know, you do another workout in there. You clean your cell, you read. Like, there's not really much to do, and like it is very hard because it's like you have to learn how to condition your mind to be able to handle being in a cell for, you know, 23 hours a day. And then, you know, they would shower us with cold water. You know, they would leave the cold water on, and then this built at that time. I was at Lompoc, which they housed me at the old Rock, the new Rock, which was like a prison that was where all. Like once, the Rock, like Alcatraz, once that closed down, they sent everyone to the new Rock, and so this building was over 100 years old. It was a military prison at the time, and so like windows are broken. It's like what you see in the movie, like these old buildings. It was freezing, you know, and it would be super cold at night, you know. I mean, then they would try to get you, you know, they would try to get you not to shower because the water was so cold. And they're like, so they would hope that you don't even want to take showers. And they would leave us in the showers for sometimes like 3 hours. So you shower, and then you're like, all right, like let me out to take my shower. And they're like, we'll come and get you, because they didn't want no one to shower. That was more work for the COs.
The guards. What is it like the movies you watch where you get one guy who's a nice guy, another guy who's abusing everyone, or were they just doing their job?
You know, they're doing their job, but also too, you got to understand, like, these guys have been probably through a lot, so they have a very thick skin, you know, and for the most part, I mean, they're assholes regardless, right? I mean, some of them are assholes, but at the end of the day, like, they, you know, as long as you respect them, they respect you. There's always going to be that one asshole.
Right.
But, you know, in there, it's like they're going to respect you for the most part, you know, because, you know, especially when you're running with, you know, the Southsiders and stuff like that, it's, you know, they're the biggest gang inside the prisons, you know.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, but like a crazy story is that, right, I got sentenced. I finally was they finally were going to transfer me to do the rest, the majority of the time, and you don't know where you're going, so they just like, you're hoping to get, you know, to catch the bus, and you know, you're waiting, so they call you early in the morning, you know, pack your stuff, get ready, you're going to leave, right? And then so you're happy, you're like, fuck, well, finally I'm going to get out of downtown LA where I'm at, I'm going to finally do my time. And so you get up early in the morning, they transfer us to it was like a 2 or 3 week wait. So they take us to Victorville. Victorville to hold us there to go to the next place I was going. So that was like a 3 week or 4 month process to get to some place that took, if we would have left from LA, it would have took us 3 hours.
Right.
All right. But in that process was the crazy part, because I was with guys that were sentenced to 30, 40 years. And I'm like, why are they taking me with these guys? And, you know, I seen guys that had the black box, which, you know, the black box meaning they were like a very, very high, like, profile criminal, or they committed a lot of violence in prison. And I remember getting on the bus, and my guy that I was next to, he got sentenced to 30 years for a bunch of kidnapping people that would cross over the border. And he would kidnap them, and he would hold them for ransom and have them call their family to pretty much give them back to them. So I was like, why am I with these guys? Like, right? And so we go to Victorville, and I hear these guys on the bus, I've been arrested, I've been down for 30 years. Oh, I've been 40 years, I got 2 life sentences. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this can't be happening. I'm like, I'm on the wrong bus.
Right.
And they take me to a maximum security prison, but that was a layover. They have you there waiting till they shoot you after where you're going. So I was there 3-4 weeks with guys that were like, guys were doing 23. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, dude, this is like a movie. Like, they put me in the wrong place. Like, I just got sentenced to 10 years for a nonviolent crime. And so it took me a month to finally understand where I was going, like, to know where I was going. And that shit was scary.
So in terms of being inside, a lot of people go in and they end up getting involved with groups of people, and you said you were involved, or you were part of this group that looked after you. How do you stop yourself from being inside the prison and ending up getting more and more time? Because I know a lot of people go in there, they start off with 10 years, next thing you know, they're doing like 40 years, some never get out. How did you keep yourself focused and keep yourself sane and start the process? Because I know in your bio that you sent me, you said you were reading a lot of books. When did that journey start for you?
Yeah.
Positivity.
Well, honestly, I mean, that's all with the grace of God, to be honest with you, that I was able to get out at, you know, close to after 8.5 years, with a little bit of good time. But the reason I was able to, honestly, like, I would mind my own business. You know, I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't drinking either. Like, the first 2 years, I was honestly, like, kind of drinking, messing around, like, not really. I'm like, well, you know, I wasn't really, like, ready to change my life.
This is why you were inside?
This was inside, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
you can get alcohol, like, freely?
Yeah, you make Pruno, which is
Okay.
alcohol. Yeah, so, you know, I never really did drugs. I wasn't in drugs or anything like that, but you know, maybe some weed here and there, and then drinking, right? But, like, so basically I was able to navigate a lot of stuff, because there was a lot of stuff that happened in there, you know, riots, shutdowns. I mean, right when I got there, to give you an example, right when I first got arrested, there was a riot with the police, the COs, and like, I heard guys saying, like, I was gonna go home next week. I'm facing another 10 years.
Wow.
You know, from a riot with the police. And so with the grace of God, I was able to navigate a lot of different stuff. But, like, I want to say 2.5, 3 years in, I decided, I met a guy out of New York. You know, he was a few cells down, and we were talking, and he see me reading. He's like, what are you reading? I was reading a novel. He's like, stop reading that junk. I'm like, well, what do you want me to read? And he's like, and that's when he gave me Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That book changed my life. And he's like, read this book. And I looked at it, I'm like, what is it? He's like, just read it. I didn't know shit about anything, right? And I'm like, so I'll read it. I'm like, I don't got anything else to do, right? We're reading. So I read the book, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, this is like amazing. Like, I didn't, you know anything about any of that personal growth, self-development. So I read it. I'm like, wow, this is good. And he's like, and he told me, when you're done with the book, I'll give you another book. And he's like, but you have to read that book. So, you know, and this guy was like a big time drug dealer, but he was all into personal growth, self-development, and he was like this big guy, a drug dealer that was involved with like the Italian mafia, and a great guy, very, very smart, and he was very successful. And so I read it, and then that book changed my life. That book, I didn't, after that, I didn't read anything else but personal growth and self-development. Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, you name it. And that was when I decided that I wanted to come out better than how I came in. That time, that book.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich,
And
yeah.
what were the key features or key points that you took from that book that started changing your mind about your life?
Just my thoughts, really my thought. Like, honestly, authors and books really they helped me do the time. How to do this time that I was doing. But it was more of controlling my thoughts. My thoughts and making them not being negative and being positive.
Right.
is what was like the biggest takeaway of learning how to change my mindset.
Right. That's so important. I've read Think and Grow Rich, Master Key to Riches, and most authors that you sent me, I've gone through, I've probably listened to, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe tens of thousands of hours of audiobooks from Anthony Robbins. I've listened to Think and Grow Rich, Master Key to Riches on audio cassettes at least 5 or 6 times. And it is all about mindset, because I think when I was younger, I've had my own journey as well. Not as extreme as yours, but with ups and downs. And I think one of the key things that I learned reading these books was mindset, and being able to see things in a positive way rather than negative. And I think growing up, I had a very, very negative mindset. Everything bad that happened to me I was a victim. Why is this happening to me? Why nobody else? Why do I have to go through this? I used to look at people in better positions and think, why are they in that position and I'm not? And I remember I read this one piece of advice, and there's these key instrumental bits that you read in books that really change your mind. And the one I read was, I think it might have been Anthony Robbins, if I'm not mistaken. He said that when things go wrong for people, they spend hours and hours stressing, complaining, feeling sorry for themselves. And he said, if you spend 1/10 of that time trying to think of a solution to your problem, then everything else that you do, your life will change entirely.
Right.
And that one sentence or that one piece from the book really, really started my shift in mindset. And I started realizing, don't look at life as problems or obstacles. Just look at it as challenges. Everything that happens is happening for a reason. You're going to learn. And at that time, I think when you're younger as well, you think bad things are exclusive to you only.
Correct.
And it's only as you get older, you realize everybody has their challenges. And, we've been fortunate enough, we are healthy. So people have physical challenges, disabilities. They've got things that they can't change. The things that we had, it's in your hands to change it. So these books were extremely instrumental in, and I think you put it the best way, the mindset of changing your mind and changing your thought process. And, whether it's things like manifestation, whether you want to believe in manifestation, whether you want to believe in karma, energy, God, it's all kind of the same principle. Correct. Of having a vision and then having this dream, but working towards it. And somehow I've noticed in my life, every time I've had a relatively clear goal and I've worked towards it, things somehow unfold and the road opens. And it's not straightforward. It's like you think of something today and you work towards it, and it takes years in order for you to be able to achieve that dream. And when you're younger, you don't have that patience. You think I want that Lamborghini and I should have it in 2 weeks. And the reality isn't that.
Exactly.
And I think, again, patience is another thing, and having the fortitude and discipline to be able to stick to things long term. That's another lesson I learned along the years. I've been involved in so many different businesses. My first business was a real estate office in London.
Remember you mentioned.
And I had, restaurant, medical business. And every business I would start, I would make the mistake of thinking, if this business doesn't make me a millionaire in 2 years, it's a waste of my time. And over time, I looked at people that were successful, friends of mine that were extremely successful, and I realized these guys stuck to something for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years, and it was, at the age of 22, you're like, 10 years, I'm going to be an old man at 32. As you get older, you calm down and you realize 10 years is not that long, actually, to stick to something. So, yeah, the books definitely were instrumental in my life also.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, so Think and Grow Rich. What were the other key books that you read? You said
Tony Robbins, Awakening the Giant.
Giant, and I've read
Zig
that as well.
Ziglar. Les Brown. You know.
Do you have any favorite quotes from those books?
Not really, not the quotes. Just, I read so many different books from those authors, but those are like the key authors. I would say Jack Canfield. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so time passes. You're now coming, towards the end of your sentence. What's your plan coming out? Do you remember? Was it the last week? Was it the last month where you were counting down and you were excited to get out? What was your feelings then?
So you count down years.
Wow.
So you don't count days, you don't count months, you count years.
Wow.
So, I would, it was like, all right, I got to get through like 8 pages, right? Like 8 books. And then you just got to learn to like, this is life. So this is my life right here. This little box that I'm in behind these, barbed wire fences, this is life. And then, at some point in the sense, I didn't care what was going on in the outside world. And that became like a big, kind of a good and bad strength, because I have an amazing strong mindset, that I can beat anyone at the mind. Man, I was, I'd done this time, I've been in a cell, like I've been through so much, but like I became very cold, because I just was like just straight, I couldn't see anything else but just straight ahead. So sometimes like you become very emotionless about certain stuff, and that can be good. That can be, you become, very driven and motivated and everything like that. But also too, you sort of, it kind of is a downside to that, right? And so I became very tunnel vision on the sentence, right? And it was the same pattern year after year, and I would count down the years, and then I was, would read real estate books, Wall Street Journal, real estate magazines, and so I met a friend maybe like 5 years in my sentence, and he was a pretty big drug dealer, and he owned a lot of real estate. And so he said, hey, you should get into real estate. And I'm like, well, what's real estate? I'm like, I don't know what real estate was at the time. He's like, well, there's a lot of different real estate. You can be a real estate agent, you can be a real estate investor, you can do development, and then there's, you can do the mortgage stuff. So he explained to me what real estate was, right? Well, we would walk the prison track, and we would talk, have our coffee, work out, and then we would walk the track. And we would just he would tell me his stories, what kind of properties he owned, what he did. He would add, do flips, do new construction with all his drug money. And so I'm like, all right, well, that sounds pretty cool. I'll do real estate. And then, so like last call, I'm like, I'm gonna do real estate. So I'm like, I'm gonna do real estate when I get out. I'm gonna get into real estate as a real estate agent. And then you would come across stories of people that were in prison as well, and they became like a successful investor, real estate guy. And so that was the plan. I wanted to get in real estate when I got out. And then, I got down, and then once you get to the last year of the sentence, you start counting months. Then once you get down to the last 30 days, you're like, all right, I got 30 days left,
Right.
28 days left. And, and they're like only your really close people that you hang out with every day, that they would know when you were going home. But a lot of time you're not telling anyone that you're going home, because, a lot of people are not happy that you're going home. I wouldn't be happy when people were going home, because like, fuck, when am my day gonna come?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you would sort of just, not that many people knew. So but I did the same process. It's so crazy, because how I live my life now is like how I was in prison at some point. Wake up, go to work out, have breakfast, go to work. I had jobs in there as well. And, you just kind of go through this process,
You spoke about God a few times. You said, by the grace of God. Was that something that you found? Did you find God in prison, or was it a belief that you had prior to that?
Well, growing up, we would go to church, my parents, and then my dad got involved with drugs and crime and all that stuff. So, we stopped going to church. So my mom was going to church, right? I remember frequently, like a little bit of, just glimpses of stuff. My mom would go to church when I was like 17, and she would always tell me, "Let's go to church." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to go to church." And then she would just kind of like be gone. Like, she would go like sometimes like twice, like one day during the week and then a day on the weekend as well. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go to church. So I'm not someone that really goes to church every week. I'll go every now and then, but I have a really deep relationship with God. I really do believe I'm really connected to a higher power, and to my higher power is God. And so I would go to church every now and then in prison, but I was scared, honestly, because I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. So, and I would tell my mom that when she would visit me. So, "You're going to do good?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I do not know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to change, but I can't sit here and tell you that I'm going to change. I don't know." And that was an honest truth. 'Cause I didn't know.
Was your mom a main support for you, a main supporting factor for you while you were in prison? Was that the main person that came to visit you?
Person.
The only person.
My sister would come, but my mom would come. Yeah.
Right. Weekly, monthly?
Well, I was like 3 hours away, so like maybe maybe like out of the year, maybe like 8 times out of the year.
Yeah.
So,
But were those things that you looked forward to?
of course, you're
Yeah.
looking forward to a visit, and then not only that, like you want to like put on some like nice prison clothes and go to the see your family, and then see other people's family, right? Like see other people in the like just like get some taste of the outside world, and then eat some food, some stuff from the vending machine.
Right. Is that something that you appreciate more when you're in prison, the fact that you don't have that family connection anymore, and something you appreciate even more when you come out? Or is it not something you think about there?
100%. Yeah, I took everything for granted. I have a great mother, great brothers and sisters. Like I took it for granted. And I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to have a mother that would come and see me, because a lot of people, they don't even get any visits.
Your last night in prison, can you remember how you felt? Did you sleep?
I don't think the last couple months, I think, that I probably like was already like super excited, tell people I'm coming home, but I think of the last few months, but same thing, I would do the same program. I didn't stop. I kept to the same thing.
Right.
Because in my head, I had to do this process to get by the day.
Right.
The process.
Right.
And it's crazy because I do the same process out here. It's just different stuff.
Is it almost like the army, where you get regimented in living
Yes.
a particular type of
Yes,
life?
yeah, you have to have your bed made. You have to have, your shoes under the bed, like a certain way. You have to have, for us, we have to have our area clean and everything like that. So yes, definitely like the army.
Mm-hmm. So it teaches you discipline.
100%.
Discipline. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you leave prison. Let's continue the story there. Who's waiting for you outside?
So I had to go to 6 months to a halfway house.
Okay, which
Because-
is for people like myself that don't know what that is.
Well, the thing is, they don't want to like release you yet to the world, so they want to put you in this halfway house that's supposed to help you get established to the outside world. So you go to this halfway house. They have case managers. You're still in prison, but not in prison.
Well, what is a halfway? Like a bed and breakfast? Like
Put it this way, it's like a
house that you have to live in?
It's a facility place,
Okay.
but just imagine a house with a bunch of rooms, and then they fit like maybe 3-4 people in each room, and it's like prison. You have a locker, you can't have anything in there. You have to be back at a certain time, but that's all it is. And then they have a common area where you can watch TV.
Right.
They allow you to leave at a certain time, and you have to come back at a certain time.
Okay.
And that's only if you had a job. If you didn't have a job, you can't go anywhere. So you had to have a job. You had to be applying for a job.
Right.
So I had to go there for 6 months, and so they gave me like, I think like maybe like 15 hours to get there, because when you get released, they tell you, do you want to have someone pick you up, or do you want to take the bus? And in there, they're like, tell me you want to take the bus. Have your mom, your whoever it is, you have your parents, your family waiting for you when you get dropped off, and then
You have more time.
you have more time with your family. So they kind of like put you up on game, and they're like, do that. So I did that, right? I'm like, all right, well, what time do I have to be back to the halfway house? I think that at like 8 o'clock. And then I had a friend at the halfway house already that was there because he was with me inside, and he got out 6 months before. So he already like put me up on, like, he put my mom, and like on game of like how to like make sure we got there like good and not in trouble, because people go back to jail for like messing up on that way home.
Oh, wow.
So I remember my mom picking me up, her ex-husband at the time, and all I wanted was a pizza and a caramel like frappuccino, right? Because we would be in prison and would make our own cold coffee, you know, with like candy and like I just wanted a Starbucks. That's all I wanted. And I told my mom, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see nobody. I told her, not yet. So no, you know, mom being a good mom, she's like, well, I'm like, let's go back to the house and where I was living at when they arrested me. So this shit was crazy, man. This is crazy. So I get to the house, and I'm like, no one's supposed to be there. I have a bunch of family there. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to see nobody. I didn't want to see no one. I walk up the driveway, and everyone's there, and like, it was just too much for me. And I'm like, fuck, and like, everyone starts telling me hi, and like, hugging me, kissing me, you're glad you're home, and I'm like tripping, like, what the fuck? Like, this shit's moving too fast for me. All these people, I see my brother was probably like 10, 11 at the time. So when he was a grown man. Wow. I seen him working on his car with tools. I'm like, what the fuck? In my head, right? I'm like, what the heck? Like, he was a kid. So I tell everyone hi. I go in the house, and I'm walking through the kitchen. I come in through the back door, walk to the kitchen, and I'm looking at the cabinets. I'm looking at the sink. I'm looking around. I go into the living room, look at the same carpet on the floor. I see this burn mark that I did. I burned the rug with the iron. I dropped the iron on the floor. The iron mark was still there. I was fucked up, dude. That shit fucked me up. I see the same pictures on the wall, the same portraits. I'm like, nothing changed. Nothing changed in 8.5 years. I see the same people. They were older. They were heavier. They were, you know, a lot of them were like heavier. And I'm like, no one changed. They were drinking. Like, I'm like, no one fucking changed here. I go to the room where I lived in. I'm like, fuck, it's the same fucking room. I come out of the room. I start having a panic attack. And I start breathing really hard. And, dude, never forget this day. I'm like crying on the living room couch. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and I start hyperventilating. I start like having a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. And everyone's like, what the fuck's wrong with him? Like, isn't he happy to see us? Because everyone's like, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with this guy? And I just remember saying, nothing changed. Nothing changed here. And I'm like, it's not you guys, because everyone's looking at me weird. Like, there was people outside, but people came in the house because they're like, what's going on with him? What's wrong with him? And they have me on the couch, like, calm down, it's all right. And I'm like, nothing changed. Nothing fucking changed here. And I remember just kind of like going through that process and then like being there for a few more hours, but I wasn't there. I was just not there.
Well, when you say nothing changed, and was it a feeling of disappointment, or
yes,
it was disappointment?
Disappointment. Yeah.
No one had done anything with their life, and things were still.
Everything was the same.
Yeah.
Everything was the same.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like that sometimes when I go back to London. So when COVID happens, I was stuck here, and I couldn't go back for, I think it was almost 3 years, 2.5 years, and then you jump on a plane, you go back to where you lived your entire life. And like you said, everything is the same. Everything is the same. Your friends are still doing the same thing. My mom's still living in the same place. The house pretty much looked exactly the same. There's things within the house that I was frustrated about, like, why don't you paint that wall, and why don't you fix this? And it's still the same 2.5 years later. So I understand. I mean, I could just imagine after 10 years what that feeling would be like. And I've always been about progression and moving and doing things. That's part of the reason I jumped on a plane and moved to Los Angeles. Everyone in London was telling me, you're crazy, you have your life. I was doing construction, I had my restaurant, I had my property, my cars. I had a relatively successful life. So to drop everything and to come to Los Angeles and start all over again, to people, it was a crazy thing. Why would you spend your entire life getting to a point where you're comfortable and then dropping everything and going again?
Exactly.
But for me, that's part of the challenge, is being able to constantly evolve and grow and move. We've got one life. And I never understand people that, and I understand for some people it's circumstantial, but people that just live their entire life the same way for 50 years. And nothing changes. It's the same job, the same people, the same friends, and there's no growth. It's the person they were at 25 is the same guy they are at 60 years old, with all the same things around them. And so in that sense, I can relate to, you coming back and just. But what were your expectations? Were you expecting things to be different,
Of course.
In what way?
Well, since I changed, right?
Right.
I thought everyone else was going to change. And I thought everybody wanted the same. Like, they wanted to do better in their life. They wanted to succeed in life. And so I had expectations for them. And that was like the biggest mistake, because it caused a lot of family problems.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see them change, and I wanted to see them, I'm not making anyone right or wrong or like above anybody or anything like that, but they're reading out of the same book, and that's okay. That for 50 years it's been the same way. You go back to the house, it's okay. They have the same. That's okay.
Yeah, but you see what it is. I think everyone goes through their own journey, right? So it took you 10 years to get to where you were, and then you come home and then you realize nothing's changed and you have this disappointment. But I think everyone in life goes through a journey and has to make those changes for themselves. They've got to pick up that book or take the job or do the courses that will create long-lasting change for them. And most people don't make those steps. They just continue doing the same thing over and over again, which, for me, it's insanity. It doesn't make sense where you see someone and they have the same thought process. And that I think that's a lot to do with it as well, the same thought process that they had 10 years ago. Even their mindset hasn't evolved into something.
Exactly. And then, like you said at the beginning, you're like, you mentioned something about like, well, if your life would have been different, before all the stuff. I'm like, yeah, but like my life would have been the way they were, like, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But like I would have probably just had like a job, which is great, but I'm saying like there was no, like, I didn't know anything, and I would have been in this little bubble with everybody. And so if it wasn't for that drastic change, and so, right, like for so long, right, for 16, 17, 18 years, I was like, didn't know what, I was like through a black hole. I couldn't see light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew there was success. I wanted to do something right. So for so many years, it was dark, not knowing what was going to happen in my life, right? I didn't know, right? I didn't know how what was going to happen outside of, I didn't know what was going to happen in prison. Every day, you don't know. You don't know what the fuck's going to happen in there.
Right.
So going through that and then coming out, struggling to get in the real estate business, struggling to have jobs, struggling to do what we're doing now, like, investors, stuff like that. So, but I didn't understand till like probably 15, maybe 18 years later, that what God did for me. Mm-hmm. God removed me from my environment,
right,
put me away for a really long time to be the person I am today.
Back at the halfway house, tell me about the 30 days there and what happened after. How did your journey begin with the real estate?
So I have to do 6 months there. They said after like a month you can go home to your house, and I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm going back to that house that I lived at. There's no way. It ain't happening. I'll stay here and do my 6 months. No big deal. This is better than I was at anyway. So you're gonna fucking kill me or send me back to jail? Like, there's no fucking way. I'm not going. So I told my mom I'm not going back. There's no way. I told her I can't. And she was a little bit sad. And I told her, well, if you move out or you buy a house or something, then I'll move out. I'll go with you. So I have an aunt that is, at the time, she was a criminal defense attorney out in LA, and she lives in Malibu, and she offered her place to me. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, shit, like Malibu, okay, like, and this is like a chance, right, to kind of get my life together, establish my life out in Malibu, and so I'm like, all right, let's go there. I tried to get there, and the staff there did not allow me to go. They said no. I'm like, what do you mean? Like it's and they're like, no, there's no way that, not in these words, but they said there's no way that you just did all this time and you're gonna live in Malibu. They're like, no way. They were just hating on me. So I said, well, fuck it, I'll do all my time right here then. And I did 6 months there.
They have the power to say you can't leave?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
really? Wow.
Yeah. So they wanted me to go back to the house that I where I was living at.
Right.
That's like, that environment was like literally like I would have been set up for success, for failure.
Right.
For failure to go back. I'm like, there's no way. So they said no. I did my 6 months there. Understand that at that time I didn't know how to email. I didn't know how to do a job application. I didn't know how to do any of that. So they would let us out for a few hours to go to like this learning center that was literally like bullshit. And they like set up your email and like do all that stuff. And you had to come back and like show them that you did an email, that you applied for some jobs and all this bullshit, right? And you know, I didn't know how to eat. I didn't know how to order at a restaurant and eat like at a restaurant. I didn't know how to date. You know, I didn't know how to do shit. I didn't know how to ride a bus. So everything was hard for me there because they're like, oh, you have to take the bus. I'm like, I don't know how to take the fucking bus, right? So I would have people pick me up and take me places, and they'll be with me for the day, but I didn't know how to do any of that. So those 6 months were tough. After those 6 months, my mom still didn't buy a house yet, so I moved in with my aunt in Malibu, and I lived in the back house there for like, I think like 6 months.
And then when did you start your real estate journey?
So when I came back home, so my mom, at that time, the 6 months, my aunt wanted me to work at Starbucks and go to college. And I got in prison. I got an AA degree.
Okay.
So I went to school in there.
Okay.
And I got, you know, it's like a home study stuff. So I got my degree in there. She's like, come back out. And like, she had like a lot of like dreams she had her own dreams for me, which I love my aunt, my favorite aunt. And the only aunt I talked to on my father's side, right? And she's the only one that ever like did good with her life and her career. But she wanted me to work at Starbucks and like go to Santa Monica College. And I'm like, dude, this shit ain't for me. Like, and so basically, after 6 months, I'm like, my mom bought a house, and I'm like, I'm gonna move back to my mom's house. And she moved. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna move with my mom. And I'm like, she was just, my aunt was disappointed. She's like, why are you gonna leave? Like, cause this was a big turning point. Like, if I would have stood there and like, I could have like lived my whole life out in Malibu. She lived in the back house. I could have lived there for as long as I wanted to get my life together. But I don't know if I would have really got into real estate out there I mean, I would have got into real estate, but not the real estate I'm doing today.
Okay.
So it was a fork in the road. I'm like, do I stay out here? But I felt like I was away from my family. I knew that, so I left my mom at 18, and prior to that, I was always in the streets. From 14, whatever age, 13 that was, I was always in the street. So I never really spend time with my family. I was in the street all day. And so I'm like, I want to go back with my mom because this is it. I want to live with my mom and be with my mom for a little bit, because then I'm going to get married and I'm going to find a girlfriend and move out. So like, I was already away from my mom for 10 fucking years.
Wow.
So it was tough because my aunt was like a mom to me, and she's like, stay here, do not go home. She was mad. She was not happy that I moved out.
What was her reasoning?
Well, she just didn't think I was gonna like probably succeed, to be honest with you. You know, she's like, "Why are you gonna go back? Oh, like stay." Like somebody in their right mind would have said like, "Oh fuck no, I'm gonna stay out here. I'm gonna live here. I'm in Malibu. I'm down the streets from Duke's, you know, restaurant. Down the street from I was on like down the street from the beach,
Right.
like I think it's called $1 Billion Beach. Like down the street from there, private. She has a private like place to go for resort at this place. Like I had it made. Like someone in the right mind would be like, fucking stay here, live your life out here. But my life was over there, and so I'm like, no, move back to my mom's house that she bought, and that time there was Instagram was kind of getting big in 2013, like kind of barely kicking off, and I found this guy. That was on Instagram that ended up being my mentor coach, and that's how I got into the real estate business.
Okay.
And that was with Kevin Sturdivant from Case Real Estate, and his father was in prison, so I seen him post a photo of his dad, and like I'm like, oh shoot, like that's cool, like his dad was in prison, I was in prison. I'm like, there's some rapport, and I reached out to him. I want to get in real estate. I did all this time, and he's like, all right. Like we chatted for a bit, and then I met him in Long Beach at the time, or Newport, I forgot. And he's the one that first gave me a shot in real estate.
How difficult was it for you to get your license?
Very difficult.
Right.
You got to understand. So I never had a job. I never worked. Only in prison, whatever. And so I came out, I don't know how to do shit. And then I started having these like jobs. And every job I had, I did it like really well. I worked as a landscaping company doing demolition landscaping for a big time landscaping company in Orange County. Stood there for a while. I worked at Costco. Did really good. They wanted to keep me at Costco, right? They're like, you did working really hard. You're gonna do amazing. If you stay here long enough, you're gonna make $30 an hour. You're gonna have benefits, all this stuff, right? And I did trucking sales with my uncle, and I was doing trucking sales, and I was doing Costco. And they're like, you got to do this full time, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to be here all day at Costco, right? I kind of want to own my time, right? So I quit the Costco, and I get into trucking, and I would sell trucks for my uncle. I sold a bunch of trucks for my uncle, and then at that time I got into the real estate, and I was applying for the real estate license at the time when I got into trucking. And it took about a little over a year, like 16 months to get my real estate license. So first of all, I had to take the test and pay for all the courses, and I didn't have no money back then. So I found a community college that gave them to me for free. So I took the 3 classes for free. So now I had those classes to go get my license, and then I had to pay for the license application, had to pay for live scan. That shit was expensive back then, right? I'm like $75 for live scan, 200 something for registration. Then I have to pay for the test, and then I study for the test, and I failed twice before I got my real estate license. And right, they're booked out way out. So the third time I got my real estate license, I passed it, and I was super happy to pass it. But that was the first. That was like nothing, because then I had to pass my test for the real estate Department of Real Estate to tell me if they were going to grant me my real estate license.
Because of your conviction?
Of my conviction.
Right.
Because they can't deny you. They said you have to go through all these steps, and then we'll see. But it was already going to be a no.
Right.
So I pass it. Well, guess what? I get something in the mail that they're denying my real estate license. After I passed my test,
Right.
after I spent all this money and time,
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck? Right? And so, I went through a lot of different stages, and I'm going to go back to that real estate, but I went through a lot of different stages. I got out. In my head, I was 18. My physical body, I was 27.
Right.
So I wanted to party, wanted to hang out at the clubs, I wanted to drink, I wanted to date women, multiple women, right? You're young. You're like, dude, like I'm like catching up here, right? And you're like trying to catch up to this life. And so I went through all that stage, right, for years, drinking all this stuff and trying to catch up to life, trying to like get acclimated with everything going on. And at some point, I understood why people go back to jail. And I had many breakdowns of like, fuck, he just goes back to selling drugs. It's easier. It's easy to sell drugs. It's harder to commit, to walk a straight line, to do the right thing, and not go back to that same path. Mm-hmm. So I cut out all my club friends, people that were selling drugs. I'm like, well, like, I'm not selling drugs. I'll go out with them every now and then to the club. So I cut everybody out, cut everyone out. And I'm like, I want to do this real estate stuff. And I pass the test. I get the stuff in the mail. And then I'm like, well, what's next? Now I have to go see a judge. Now I have to appeal my case. So I appeal my case, and I have to get all this paperwork to show that I changed. So I get all that stuff, and I go to the Department of Real Estate, and remind me, in that time, I start getting all this stuff in the mail from lawyers, right? It's like when you get a ticket, right, or you get a DUI, they start sending you all this stuff in the mail, right? So I'm like, and then so I start calling them. I'm like, oh, how much? Oh, well, $10,000. I'm like, $10,000 to represent me, to try to get, yeah, but we're really good. We're gonna get your real estate license. And I was so stressed out because I wanted to do this real estate thing, but I couldn't. And then I started working for Kevin as an intern / assistant / 100 other items, right? And meanwhile, I was doing trucking. Meanwhile, I was trying to get my real estate license. Meanwhile, I was just trying to get my life together, and I went to go see the Department of Real Estate. We had a long interview for like an hour, and he's like, he pretty much, I had to explain my life, and pretty much the whole thing to see if I changed. That was the whole thing. Did he change? Did he take responsibility? So what they do is they recommend. They do the report, and you have to see a commissioner, and they're gonna and then the feedback they get, they're gonna send to him, and then he decides, or she. It was him at the time, right? And so they do that, and then I'm like, what's next? Like, well, we have to wait now. I'm like, shoot. And then towards the end of 2014, my uncle pretty much tells me that you know what, dude, you can't do this real estate stuff no more. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm selling all your trucks for you. I'm making you money. Like, what's the issue? He's like, you're not supporting my dreams. You're not supporting my business. Like, I need someone that wants to grow in the company and grow my business. And I'm like, what do you mean, right? And he fucking fires me.
No way. Wow.
Fires me. Wow. I don't have my real estate license yet. And I started making a little bit of money. So, like, I bought a new car, and like, I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he owed me some money that he never paid me, right? And I'm like, fuck. I was hating life, man. I remember going home that day and sleeping. Because I'm like, I have some credit card bills I need to pay. I don't have my real estate license. At the time, I wasn't making anything, really, like working for free for Kevin. But it was worth it, but it wasn't paying no bills. I was living with my mom, so I don't have to pay any bills at home. But I had a car payment, I had a phone bill. I'm like, I had some credit card debt. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how am I gonna pay all this shit? Mm-hmm. Right? I'm like, fuck. Stressed out.
At this point, how long has it been since you've been out of prison?
Not even a year.
This is all within the first year?
Yeah, not even a year, yeah. Like, not even a year. Because I got out the end of 12, like 13. So this was like maybe a year and a half, okay, around there. Maybe about a year and a half. So I do that. So I'm like, fuck, man, I got to figure this out. So my court date came up, and my broker came with me, and we went to court, and basically it was an all-day thing. It was from the morning to it took like 5 hours. And so basically he wanted me to walk him through my life, like this interview from day one. Right. So same thing, when did you start committing crime? And I want you to walk me all the way when you got arrested, your time in prison, your time, and today. So there's so I decided to defend myself because I don't have 10,000. I didn't even have 5,000.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't pay some. And who knows my story better than me? So I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go and tell my story, share it to this guy, the commissioner. And then I had the lady on the other side would be like the one person against me, like that's gonna say no, don't give me this real estate license. I don't know what they're called. Like, so I tell my story, and I remember walking out probably like over 10 times because I started crying. Because I get very emotional at times because as we're sharing and talking, you're taking me back.
Right.
So, like, walk out, come back, take as long as you need, then come back in here. I would go out, drink water, I would cry, and then I would drink water and like shake it off, and I would go back in. Then same thing, I would cry again, and then walk out and come back in, and then I would share, and then I did that for 4 or 5 hours. And then he's like, all right, thank you. You know, we end it, and he's like, okay, you'll get something in the mail. I'm like, fuck, again? Another 3 months, we have to wait, and I don't know what I'm gonna get.
Wow.
I don't know. And the lady on the other side, she goes, good luck. She's like, good luck. I hope everything works out for you.
In a real way or sarcastic?
In a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way, because she's like, fuck it, she just heard my story for 4 to 5 hours. I'm not gonna deny this guy. I don't got anything to deny. Like, but her job is to like, no, this guy's did fraud or whatever. This guy committed crime. He hasn't took responsibility. She didn't say one word. She just listened.
Right.
So I knew I won.
Right.
But I didn't know. I didn't know. So 3 months, and I'm still working, hustling. Now I'm doing real estate full time. You know, I'm calling for Kevin. I'm doing all this stuff for him. And then one day, and this is kind of where I already started like visualizing. I would write in my journal, and I would visualize how I was going to get my real estate license. And I was at the office working. My mom was going to call me, and she was going to open up the envelope from the Department of Real Estate, and that they were going to say that they granted me a restricted real estate license, because that's at the time what I knew that I would get. Mm-hmm. That happened exactly
The way you thought.
exactly. And I would play it in my head over and over how it would happen. I'm like, I'm going to get my real estate, and they even have it on video still of me, and I remember on the phone with my mom. She put me on. She told me, she's like, you got your real estate. Like they gave you restricted.
What is a restricted license?
A restricted license meaning pretty much like, say like if I do anything, like let's just say like a deal goes wrong, or even let's just say I get a DUI or a fight at a bar, anything, they take it. Mm-hmm. You can't even question. Now I don't have a restricted license. I have a regular real estate license now. Now I get a fine. You know, then I have to go to the judge. Like it's very hard to take my real estate license unless I really, really did something wrong. Then they did no questions, they pulled it from you.
Right, and for how long is it
4
restricted?
years.
Wow.
I had it for 4 years.
Okay.
So I had to walk on eggshells, dude.
Right.
And yeah, so it was tough. It was good because when you're on that, like it makes you perform and do things above and beyond. So it made me a better agent than what it did. Mm-hmm.
Once you've got your license, what is the reality of the business compared to what you thought it would be?
Well, when I started interning with them, I didn't know that I had. Well, the one thing too that that Kevin taught me is how to hunt, and that's something that was very helpful years down the road, like today, right? So he taught me how to hunt and find deals, but I didn't know that I had a prospect and make contacts, learn my scripts. All that stuff, and that's what I didn't know anything. So when I got into, when he started sharing me with all that stuff, like I was like, what the hell? It's like, this is tough, So it was already tough. I didn't have my license, and I had to do it with my license, and I had to get a book of business. I had nothing. No, my friends were like not buying homes. My family wasn't buying homes. I didn't have no past clients. I didn't have any friends or family that maybe they were ready to buy a house. Hell no, nothing.
I think I've seen this a lot here in Los Angeles, where people get their license, and they've been watching one too many episodes of Selling Sunset, and they think they're going to get their license and they're going to be selling multi-million-dollar homes straight off the bat. And I've got my real estate license as well. I worked, I met you through Josh, so I worked with him for a while. And it's a tough business. It's very, very tough. The first 3 to 6 months are brutal. You're going to have some kind of saving because very few agents are able to close a deal within that period of time. And I think the reality for most agents that get their license is that after a few months they give up. And I saw so many people coming in all excited, and within 3 to 6 months you'd never see them in the office again.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even the first 3-5 years is tough, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And so what was it that made it a successful business for you?
Yeah. Well, I always hired coaches and mentors to help me. I knew, like, if I wanted it to succeed, like, I just had to be around the people that were doing it already. And I did that when I was selling drugs. I was around successful drug dealers. You know, it's just what it is. It's got to change the negative to a positive. So I had coaches, I had mentors. You know, I was working at a good office, and I got really good at finding deals, cold calling and finding deals.
Right. Was that the key thing that you done, cold calling, door knocking? Because I know every agent has their own way of doing things, and some agents, they love door knocking, some like cold calling.
It was a mixture of door knocking and cold calling.
That was the main two things.
Because that's the cheapest thing. You just need a phone and you know, door knock. You don't need anything, a piece of paper. That's it.
How'd you get past the rejection of someone hanging up the phone on you, or you knocking on their door and them shouting and screaming, "Get off"?
Well, you got to understand, the first few years were very, very tough. Even I had a ambition, and I was very hungry and driven. So I would work past all those rejections. But you got to understand too, like I was trying to prove myself, right? Like as a successful realist, because even though I had my real estate license, like I still had the 10 years that I did in prison on the rearview mirror. So like I would talk to people like, you know, I felt they were better than me, or like I was below them. Like I had no confidence. I'm like, I don't want no one to know about my prison. I don't want anyone to know about that I was in jail. Like, so that was tough. You know, that was tough. And then, you know, getting rejected, I mean, it's just like, even though I knew like rejection, obviously I wasn't, you know, the more people would get rejected, the more opportunity. That's just what it is. But it took a long time to kind of come to that where I'm at today, to have that mind, because sometimes you're like, fuck man, they cussed at you and you take it personal.
Right.
And you know, if you're like, oh man, this is like really hard, or your self-doubt, your mindset, you know, it starts taking, you know, it starts fucking telling you shit, and you're like, you know, then I would go home, like the first year I would go home at like noon or 1, I would sleep. I was so stressed out.
Right.
So
and that's the difficult part with real estate as well, that you don't have, you're essentially your own boss.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to show up to work for a week, you don't have to. And being able to motivate yourself through all those days where there is no business, all the doors getting slammed in your face, all the phones getting hung up on you, it takes a particular type of person and a particular type of resilience to be able to get through that. So you now have your own team, and you have people that you mentor. So if someone is to come up to you and say, hey, I want to get started, but I'm scared of door knocking, or I'm scared to pick up the phone and call someone, what's the advice you give them?
Well, we got to see what their strengths are and their personality types. So, you know, some people do good at open houses, some do good at door knocking, some do good at social events. Some people have a really good spirit that they don't need to do any of that, and they can just work their spirit. So once we get an understanding of the type of personality type that they are, because people, like some people are not good at rejection. So why are you going to put them to make phone calls? That's not their strength. Right. You got to find that person's strength and then work it from there.
I love that. You're 100% right, and I agree with you, because there are people. I remember one day we were in one of the classes at the office, and this girl got up and she started speaking about how she's been door knocking for the last 6 months, and she's got absolutely nothing. And not to be critical of someone else, but just the way she spoke, her whole presentation, her demeanor, I felt like saying to her, door knocking is not for you.
Yeah.
You just don't have that thing, and some people are very good at it, other people are not. Find something else that works for you. So I think your advice is 100% correct, is find that person, and I think it goes across life generally, find your strength.
Yeah, exactly.
There isn't one thing that fits for everybody.
Exactly.
How many people are in your team now?
It's very small. Very, very small. I had like 5 agents, and now we only have 2.
Okay.
And then I have 2 assistants, which I don't really call them assistants. I mean, they're like one of them does more, like I would say, operations, and then the other one sort of helps the operations, like with any other stuff. Like she delegates all the little stuff to the junior assistant operations, and they run my business. They run my broker business, from when it opens escrow to when it closes, and they deal with as many calls as they can to kind of take stuff off. But obviously, we have to talk to clients, and we have to talk to, people. I mean, I have to. It's just what it is. But they try to eliminate as much as we can for me. And then I have 2 agents. That's it.
2 agents.
And then we have like a runner that goes around for me. And that's it. Very, very small, lean team.
When you're recruiting agents, what's the key characteristics you look at to hire somebody?
Integrity, coachable, and honest.
Okay. When you say coachable, what do you mean by that?
Because, we're ego. Some people are not coachable, and they don't know how to be, like they think they know it all. And like, I don't even know it all. So like, if you're going to come in and try to learn from me and think you know it all, then you're not the right fit. And that comes down to ego. And I don't want anyone that's in my environment that has a huge ego. So if they're coachable, then they're the right fit. If they're honest and they're loyal, we're good.
Okay. The best part of being a realtor?
I would say the best part of being a real estate agent is the opportunities that we get, because we're first line in everything. We're in the streets. We get to see the houses. We get to know. We're first line everything, and then the people that you get to meet. I would say the clients.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of successful people.
A lot of it's to do with people. And I think you have to be a people's person to be able to be good at this business. And to your point earlier on, I think...
you know what? I agree with you, but I'm really not. I like to be by myself. I like to stay home. I don't like to talk to people, but... you have
to be impressionable, right?
Yeah, for sure.
When you meet someone at the very beginning.
Exactly, yeah. But I turn the light on, right, when I need to, and I can talk and communicate with you and do all that stuff.
Right. So when you and I met originally, it was through Josh, and I came down to that. I think it was a 4-plex you were building.
2833 East 6th Street.
Right, and then Josh was telling me your background story, and I was very impressed from someone that had never done development, for you to be able to jump into a ground up, and we were walking around, you were talking about a lot of the details of it, the problems you had, where it went well, and your future ambitions. How did you jump from real estate into property development, and where are you with your business now with property development?
So it's all mindset. It goes back to mindset, and going back to the one thing is like learn how to find the deal. But I made a lot of clients millions of dollars, millions, multi-millions probably. I got really good at finding deals, and I would sell them to investors and developers. And then we would either refinance them and sell them, and then I would help them grow their portfolio. So I got to learn firsthand. I went to USC. I took this USC program at for the development program. Spent like $10,000. Didn't learn shit. Right? Like,
property development.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And, it's like I want to go to USC, and like this program's gonna help me. Like, it's good, but it wasn't like I'm in the hard knocks in the streets, learning the real shit.
Right.
Like, so I learned how to underwrite a deal. What to look for the zoning, to the lot size, to the square footage, to city stuff. Entitlement, all the stuff from entitlements, historical homes, slopes, hillside, you name it. And then I learned the entitlement process once we got it closed, and learned how to take the property from purchasing the property to getting the property RTI shovel ready, which is ready to issue to start construction. Right. So I learned all that, made these guys millions of dollars, and I would get an amazing tap in the back and say, "Great job, Danny. Go find me another deal. You're doing amazing. Thank you so much." So I got really good, and it comes back to serving, right? Like we're here. I drove 2 hours to come out here, and was it a long drive? Yes, but at the end of the day, Al, it's about serving, making an impact, and helping more people. And we talked about that, through podcasts, Instagram. We're going to be able to change more lives. So through the process, right, I was helping these people become successful, and I'm like, I want to help them make money. I really did. I want to make. I have to make a money. That's my job, is to make a money. So at some point, you're like, well, this guy's not as smart as me. He's actually kind of a little bit more dumb than me. He doesn't know shit, really. I'm like, some of the stuff he just doesn't get. I'm like, all right, well, I think I can do this. I think I can do this. And this is where the mindset, the belief comes in, right? And then, so for probably 2 years, I envisioned myself developing across Boyle Heights and LA, mostly Boyle Heights. And I would be driving from Orange County to LA, and I would go to job site to job site. And I would get off the car, and I would talk to the workers, and talk to them, ask them questions, connect with them, and then go look at my job site, and then leave.
Mm-hmm. These are your job sites or just random job sites?
These were my job sites, but I was visualizing this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For 2 years.
Wow, okay.
For 2 years, I would get into the feeling of it.
Okay.
Of like, how was I going to be driving that car? How was I going to feel getting off that job site? So it's like the be do have, right? I'm like, who did Danny need to be to have this stuff? All right? And that was a process I would walk through. And for 2 years, I would do that. And then in 2019, I bought my first ground up development property. And I had a partner on it, and I'm like, you got some cash, I got some cash. You want to try to just do this? And we did it. Mm-hmm. And from there, we did a few more, lost some money, lost some friendships, and then basically like 2022, it scaled really crazy, man, which is last year.
Right.
Through social media, I'm posting all these jobs. I started getting investors. So people are like, what do you, and the numbers don't lie. Numbers are numbers. Mm-hmm. And so I was front end finding the deal. And then I already had the recipe for success. I already knew, like, we have comps, we know construction costs, very, very simple process. So 2021, we're doing stuff, and then every single year after that, it just grew like crazy. Right. More investors wanted to invest with me, and then some would say yes, some would say no. And then I started having my own stuff, and then I started having like friends and family, like what it's called. It wasn't family, but it was friends and family money. Right. And then we would have like some gap funding as well. People would lend us some money, a percentage. And then the last one, which was strictly 100% funded by outside investors. Wow. Yeah. And that happened like in 2021, I think, or 2021. Yeah, 2020. Right. I got and then every year started growing. Right. And we went from 1 or 2 projects, in 2020, maybe 3, to right now I have 15 ground up projects. Wow. In different stages.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But a key point that you touched on was the failures that you had and the fact that you lost money. And I think that's a really, really key part of success is embracing the failures. When you're growing up, you seem to think that if you fail, you've lost, and you can't have any failures. And it has to be this road where you just go up, up, and up. And you start realizing, no, some of those failures actually paved the way for the success, because if you didn't fail on the first and second one, there was no way you could go to Envisions and say, hey, I know how to do this, because you failed on your own money, and now it's time to take money from investors and be able to prove to them that I've done the proof of concept. It works now.
For sure. Yeah, so, and not only that, but too, like, it's like when I did fail, right, and it's like, well, it's not that bad, man. I'm like, I have my freedom. I prayed for this. Mm-hmm. So every time I start stressing or worrying or like failure, you're like, Danny, you prayed for this on a prison bunk. Do not be ungrateful. Right. Embrace the struggle, embrace the stress, whatever it is that you're going through, and we're going to get through it. But the thing is that, like, it was very hard when I lost all the deals and the money that we were going through, because at that time my wife was pregnant with my daughter. So, like, dude, I would leave in the morning, and that was during COVID. Right. Because I started in 19 and then we ran it into 20. So, like, dude, my wife was pregnant. She wasn't working. So, like, she didn't know shit that was going on from when I left the door to when I got home, because I didn't bring the problems home.
Right.
I didn't say shit. She got up and came home, and she didn't know like how much money I lost, because I didn't want her stressing. You know, we had our baby, and like I didn't need her stressing or anything like that. So that was stressful because I still had to make money from the brokerage business, and then like a lot of the time in 2020, I got stuck doing construction versus the brokerage business because properties got stuck, and I had to personally fix the problems that we had with plans, architectural, slopes, and all that stuff, and we had to get out of that. So like I lost my income, and this income was already losing.
Right.
So like I was really upside down.
Right. And now with the experience you've had over the last few years, what do you say the key to a successful development project is?
So I specialize in double duplexes, so 4 units is what I specialize in. That's my bread and butter. So, you know, what we look for is that it's a ground up, you know, it's flat lot, you know, there's not any crazy things with the soil. Flat, that's it, flat, it's not under historical, it's not gonna take us more than like 5-6 months to get plans approved. And that way we can build a certain amount of bedrooms and bath, which is normally anywhere from 16 to 20 beds and 20 baths.
Right. So effectively what you're saying is specialize in something or find your lane of what works for you, because the development world is such a huge world, and you know, site to site is different, construction to construction is different, and each one is a learning curve. So if you find your niche of what works for you, then you're on your way.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, and then I mean number I would say is find a mentor, and find someone that's actually doing what you want to do. Me and my friend, we didn't have the experience. We just like, hey, you got cash, I got cash, let's do it. That was like a worst mistake. But I'm happy because those mistakes ain't gonna happen. And ever since then, I have not had any issues with any projects.
Right.
Like there's issues, but we have not lost any money.
Right.
You
I
know.
mean, development, there's always issues. Property
Yeah.
development, there's always, but it's about having the tools and resources to be able to, and experience to be able to resolve those issues.
Correct.
These projects from beginning to end, you know, so many times you just want to smash your head against the wall because things go wrong. But you just after a while learn that, hey, things are going to go wrong, and it goes back to that thing. Instead of stressing about a problem, think of a solution. It's going to go wrong. There's not a single development project that I don't think anyone's got involved in, no matter how good they are, they go smoothly from A to Z.
I know this may sound crazy, but like when I lost all that money, I'm like, dude, like this is kind of what I wanted to do. Like, you know, like, dude, like you're not in a prison cell.
Right.
You're not in jail. Like these are healthy problems. I don't want to lose. No one wants to lose money,
right.
but this is a blessing.
To be in a position to be able to do these projects.
All I
100%.
wanted was, honestly, and there's not downgrading any, I was happy working on a forklift. That would have been fine.
Right. It's actually interesting. A friend of mine was telling me a scenario where he was complaining about where he was at that moment in life, living the life that he had. And he's pretty successful, lives in a nice house, drives a nice car, has a family, and he was telling his problems to his friends and what he wanted, because we always want bigger and better things.
Of course.
And his friend turned around and said to him that if someone would have turned around and said to you at 40 years old, you'd be living in this house that's worth $5 or $6 million, driving a Bentley Bentayga, doing this, doing that, would you be happy? Would you? And he said, yeah, that would have been beyond my imagination, but you lose sight of that so quickly, and you just want more and more. And it's great to be ambitious, but every now and again you need to pinch yourself and realize that you are further than where you potentially thought you would have been 10 or 15 years ago. Sure.
And that's why I love doing these. I love because sometimes I forget where I came from, and I never like to glorify prison, but it's a reminder and it motivates me because I'm like, dude, like I remember what I went through.
Right.
Because sometimes you forget. You know, you forget.
You're right. At this stage of your life now, we were discussing about giving back, doing things to help other people. Where does the motivation for that come? And what is it that you want to achieve? Do you think to yourself, if you could save that one kid from going to jail, or you could save one kid from going through the path that he shouldn't, is that the motivation for you?
I love helping children. Teenagers, to be exact, because I was a teenager when I started messing up. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if I had the right role model, that I could have probably been guided in a better direction. But like I said, like I'm happy that I did I'm happy that I got 10 years in prison and
Right.
did my time. But that's like the kind of kids I like to help. But like it also too, like it's more about being the person I admire to be. So I mean, everyone's different. So it's like giving the person that being the person that you want to be, and give it to the world. What does that look like? To me, that's having a successful company, that is having passive income, to be able to do what I want when I want, make money while I'm sleeping, have an amazing family, amazing relationship with my wife, amazing relationship with my kids, to be able to travel with them when we want, and grow memories, and to be able to be healthy or whatever that looks like, and not drink. And that's sort of, so it don't have to be a teenager. It can be someone that's drinking. Like today in the morning, my painter calls me, and he's been drunk for the last 2 days, and he's like, "I'm sorry I let you down, dude. You don't have to hire me." I'm like, "Dude, it's okay. It's okay. How can we help you?" So it could be anybody who walks of life. It's just really promoting, like, hey, it's just being that person that you admire to be, and give it to the world.
You said not drinking. Have you given up drinking altogether?
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with drinking. I'm fine. I'm happy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people have started to do that in the
Yeah.
last few years with the with the amount of research that's coming out now that's saying things like, not even what they used to say back in the days, a single glass of wine is actually good for you. No amount of alcohol is good for you. And a lot of people are finding giving it up altogether, they're becoming extremely more productive and are able to focus a lot more than, just taking their eye off the ball, even if it's one night out and drinking
Correct.
heavy.
And it just really comes down to it's really eliminating those vices.
Yeah.
So everybody has vices. Me, I love eating. I love eating bread, pizza. So I have to eliminate that. So but it can be, someone else can be porn. Somebody can be drinking, smoking. Just eliminating those vices is sort of the thing. Just, how can we get rid of our vices?
Right. Do you not think you need a vice in life? So, if someone is sitting there thinking, I'm going to give up drinking and I'm going to be bored because I'm not going to be able to go out anymore. How do you get around that?
That was recently, right? Because I haven't drank in a year.
Okay.
But it's to me, like, I really don't give a shit, like, what people think. And so, like, recently my wife stopped drinking. So now, like, it's rubbing off.
Right.
And I don't really want, and it's nothing wrong with them, but I don't want to be around people that are going to get drunk. Like, maybe a drink or two, but if we can't have a normal conversation, then maybe we're not even supposed to be hanging around with each other.
Right.
I don't want to be around people that are drinking and like, because they're trying to escape something else,
That's interesting. What do you do for, what is your vice now, your healthy vice? I think you exercise, you said a lot.
It's food.
It is.
I love eating.
Right.
And that's sort of like my biggest struggle.
Right.
Is eating. Is like and that's why I lost almost close to 30 pounds.
Wow.
But that's like my biggest vice. Also too was drinking. I liked having a few drinks. Not during the week, but like on a Friday, and then a Saturday, and then sometimes on a Sunday. And then maybe if we're out on dinner on the weekdays, then a drink there too.
Do you miss it at all?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
No. That's a really sobering reality of it, because a lot of people you
I love
speak to,
tequila.
right? A lot of people you speak to, and I almost feel, and maybe it's true for some, but I feel like they're not being honest. They're like, no, I don't miss it at all, and you feel like sometimes when you give certain things up, you do miss them, but for the bigger purpose of the journey you're going on and the destination you want to get to, you're willing to put up with that negative aspect of it, then just come out and say, no, I don't miss it at all, and it's
Correct.
just like,
And to me, and you talk about sacrifice, just like I feel like I am an offering and sacrifice to the world, to like, to really show people that, people can change and people can really do something with their life, and giving that, and I'm willing to sacrifice that, because and at the end of the day, it's a return about helping people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought that you have, being able to change at any moment. And I think it was in a movie, I think it was Vanilla Skies, if I'm not mistaken, where he says that every minute is a minute that you could turn it all around. So at any point in your life, you could turn your entire life around, and it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And like you said, there's many sacrifices you have to take along the way, such as losing your friends and losing those people. I think, unfortunately, the reality is that the people that you hang around with are the people that you become like. And
Correct.
if you want to grow and change, you're going to have to give up some of those friends. And it's tough because some of them are people that you have fun with.
Correct.
Some of them are people that you grew up with. Some of them are people that you don't want to disconnect from. But unfortunately, if you're trying to go down a different journey, you're going to have to part with certain people in your life. I had this problem very early on where I wanted to be successful when there were certain people around me that were doing things that were inhibiting their growth. And I wanted to grab everyone's hand because it was like, hey, let's all come up together. Let's all do this together. And at some point you realize, whether it's their own limiting beliefs or whether it's just not their time, there's certain people that are not going to go on the journey with you.
Correct.
And it's as sad as it is.
Correct.
That school kid that you grew up with and that other person that you hung out with in your teens, you're going to have to part ways. And it doesn't mean you have to become enemies, but your journey is not the same anymore.
Yeah, and people come in our lives for a reason. You know, they come in and it's like social cleansing, right? Like,
Right.
they come in and they're in our lives for a certain amount of years or months or weeks, and they're in my life for a reason, and I'm in their life for a reason, and then at some point they're out, and some other people come in, and it's like socially cleansing,
Right.
and that's the way I look at it.
All right. A couple of last points and we'll wrap it up. I know you've been here for a couple of hours now. You touched on the point of manifestation a few times. What does that mean to you, and how do you think that vision that you have becomes a reality? What are the steps?
Well, I think we have to expose ourselves to to stuff we want. So that might be renting a Rolls Royce Phantom, right? Or that might be spending a night at the Pelican Hill in Newport, or at the Montage in Laguna Beach, right? Or spending it at a nice Airbnb. And so we have to expose ourselves, a nice restaurant right at Mastro's, like whatever that is, right? Like whatever life it is that you want to live, expose yourself to get an idea of what it is, and then really get a feeling of it, and then at the same time it's all mindset, and then the manifesting process is like, to me, is that like if I can play this story over and over in my head, it's like a lie, right? You tell a lie, at some point you're gonna believe the lie, right? You're like, I'm 36 when you're really 38. You're like, no, you're like, I'm 36, and you start to believe it, or you know what? You just start believing it over and over. So it's the same thing. If I keep playing this story in my head, it's gonna manifest at some point. Is it backed up with action? 100%. But it's a record. Let me play it over and over and over, and let me get the feeling of it. How does it feel to be in this new car? How does it feel of going to the development site? And then if I can just play it over and over, and I walk myself through this process of how it's supposed to happen, it will happen. It might take 10 months, it might take a day, it might take 5 years, 10 years, we don't know. And everything in my life is exactly like by design. I live in Orange County, building my dream home. I do development all across Los Angeles. My wife is exactly everything that I wanted in a woman, and I wrote all that down. Right. And it showed up 2 years later.
I believe that. I have a very similar story with my wife, but that's another story. But
yeah.
I really believe in that entire manifestation thing of how you think of things, and I still to this day cannot explain it and the way it happens. Even my very being here in Los Angeles, at one point it was a thought in my head. I came out here when I was 18 years old, and at 18 years old I decided I'm going to live in Los Angeles. Now the journey took far longer than I expected, but somehow through, and again that's a story in itself, but through a series of things that I can't even explain, I end up in Los Angeles. And I always wanted an office where I have now, and somehow
you're off of Sunset.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah. So it was just, hey, started looking around, and somehow we ended up finding this spot when I wasn't, it was a thought in my head many, many years ago, but somehow I ended up here, and I'm sitting here thinking, damn, I thought about this 10 years ago. I'd love to have a spot somewhere along this road. And like I said, I don't know how it happens, but what I do know, that the manifestation and the dream has to be backed up by work and effort. Of course. It's a continuous process over a prolonged period of time, years. And eventually you'll get there and you'll look back and think, how did I get there? But it wasn't an overnight thing. It takes a long, long time to happen.
Of course. It's 18 years.
18 years, yeah.
19 years.
Yeah, amazing. Your future. What do you plan in terms of career, work-wise?
I want to
property
build. I want to
development?
build up the brokerage business.
Okay.
You know, we do really well in the brokerage business, and it takes care of us no matter what market we're in, and nothing too crazy and big. And then I just want to grow the development business.
Development. That's where your passion is?
Yeah, the passion is development.
Development.
But it's just that, you know, it's a lot of money, and like there's, I don't have like enough passive income to stop the brokerage business.
Right.
So, you know, once we grow up the brokerage business and once we grow up the passive income, then we can do more full-time development. My passion is definitely development.
Right.
And we're doing a little bit of ADUs. We're doing 4 units. I'm doing a 12-unit affordable housing project. That's extremely
Amazing.
fun.
Amazing.
And then an 18-unit affordable housing project. So that's my passion. So if I can do more of that, and then ideally, like just really working 3 weeks out of the month, you know, from like 8 to 2, 8 to 3, get home in time to be able to play with my daughter, pick her up from school, take her to sports, hang out with my family, and then like take a week off and travel the world and stay somewhere for a week and do that every month, you know, and just like 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and just disconnect and travel. And then I would really like, and it really at some point to be able to like maybe like live somewhere else for a few months out of the year and see if I can like manage this stuff remotely, like Miami or wherever, just like, you know, or I don't know, wherever, you know, Cabo or Mexico, and like stay out there for like a month and like enjoy, you know. But it's more just really is the number one goal is to try to get this all running where it runs on its own, and then I can decide when I want to put more gas in the fire.
Right.
And it's like, all right, I want to work a little harder this month. Let's work. But I want to take the, you know, I want to slow down a bit, and I want to spend more time with the family, and that's sort of the goal.
Okay. Looking back at your journey now from where you started.
And also, too, is that I started mentoring. So I have 3 different mentorship programs. So we have like the free Zooms that I do monthly, and then I do the free meetups every like quarter, and then I have a paid mentorship program. So that's something that I really am very passionate with the development stuff to grow that. Because that's what it really gets. Like if we can change people's lives, and that's bigger than money or anything.
Right. It's I definitely have to come down to one of these meetups. When's the next one?
Let's see, we just did it, so I would say probably February.
Yeah, let me know.
And they're like 100, 150 people there.
I'd love to come down. Yeah, definitely. Looking back at your journey now from when you were a kid, what you went through, all the lessons you've learned, all the things we've spoken about now, how do you see where you are now and the lessons you learned?
Well, this is honestly still to be what we're doing right now. To do what we're doing right now, like I still is like crazy. I still get chills. I still trip out. I'm like, fuck, I can't believe this shit, how good it is.
Right.
You know, but the lessons, you know, the lessons come from the experience. So, you know, I mean, like it just depends, like what lessons, right? Like there's lessons in development, there's lessons in my relationship, there's like all kinds of different lessons. There's lessons from growing up on the street. But at the end of the day, like I could say the one thing is that like whatever you admire in doing in life, if you want to be a police officer, you want to be an attorney, you want to be a firefighter, you want to be a developer, you want to be an architect, find those people that you want to be like and learn from them for 5, 10 years, whatever it is, because you're going to expedite the journey to get there. So if you're 18, and you're like, dude, I want to be this, well, go hustle and work for someone for 10 years, because and if they're 50, you're gonna time collapse them. So that's the one thing, it's environment. Put yourself in the environment of the people that you want to be, because you're going to be there in 5 to 10 years.
Amazing. And on that note, I appreciate you coming down. It's been amazing, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
No, thank you.
Great
Appreciate
stuff.
you, man.
Thank you. Thanks.